Welcome to the Photodiode Circuit Design Wizard. This tool will help you pick an op-amp to condition your photodiode. So in other words, we're going to build a transimpedance amplifier for your photodiode. So on this first page, we specify the photodiode specifications, and there are two key specs. So the first spec is the capacitance of your photodiode, and you need to be careful when you enter this in that you put in the capacitance at whatever reverse voltage that you're using. So you need to make sure that when you look at the data sheet, the spec that you pull is at the reverse voltage. You may actually have to look at a graph in the data sheet rather than pulling the number from the front page. The other key spec is the peak current, which is at the maximum light intensity. What's the peak current that you're going to get? And that's based on the sensitivity of the photodiode. Now, typically we assume that you're just going to put in some custom parameters here. We do have a little photodiode library with a few photodiodes, so if you want to do that, you can kind of play around with it, but this library doesn't have a lot of common photodiodes. So once you've specified your photodiode specifications, the next step is the circuit design page. So now the tool recommends a op-amp for you, and it's a resistor and capacitor, and these values are based on the specifications that you put here in the left-hand side. So for example, we can change the peak voltage, and that's going to change the values that you see here. So for example, this resistor is the gain of the transimpedance amplifier, and it's set by the peak voltage and the peak current that we set in the photodiode screen, the previous screen. You can also, for example, change the speed. And as you change these parameters, your components are going to change, including your op-amp. Another thing that you can change is the peaking of your circuit, so how much peaking you'll see in the pulse response or frequency response. And as you change this value, it will affect this feedback capacitor. So sometimes it'll affect the op-amp, but it'll also affect the feedback capacitor there. So you can see as we change that there. If you aren't getting quite the performance that you'd like out of the circuit, you can often go to a two-stage circuit. This will typically give you a little bit better noise performance, and if you're pushing speed boundaries or you have a really weak signal, this can be helpful. Now, the tool typically picks an op-amp for you, but if you have your own favorite op-amp or want to choose something else, you can go through here in this list and we'll show you stuff that just won't work at all, stuff that we don't think is the greatest, but you can still pick, and then stuff that we recommend. So for example, you can filter and you can pick a, op-amp like this. And now what will happen is that your op-amp will be locked, so you can go make changes here, and you're going to see the resistor and capacitor change, but your op-amp is going to stay the same. And if you want to actually go back to the op-amp that the tool recommends, just hit this unlock and it'll go back to that. Down at the bottom, we have this quick result view. So as you're playing around, you can quickly see how are things affecting both your noise and your offset performance while still looking at the circuit diagram. You also can look at more detail in terms of pulse response, frequency response, and various noise views. The next screen is the next step screen where you can do things like order samples. You can get the design files, which would include like a PDF of the different views that you see here, as well as a SPICE circuit. You can send this to a colleague, or you can tell us what you think of the tool. Also on this last page, in addition to all the screens that we already previously had, we also have a bill of materials for you. And then if you really like the design, you can go up here at the top and you can save it, or you can load a previously saved design. So that's pretty much it for the Photodiode Circuit Design Wizard.